August 21st, 1945. A loudspeaker crackled to life. On a cliff overlooking the Pacific Ocean, a Japanese woman stopped. She was holding her daughter. The girl was maybe 3 years old. They were standing at the edge. One more step, and they'd fall 300 feet into the rocks below. The woman had been walking toward that edge for the last 5 minutes. Behind her, 20 other civilians were doing the same thing, all heading toward the cliff, all preparing to jump. American soldiers watched from 100 yards away. They'd tried approaching. The civilians ran faster toward the edge. They'd tried shouting in Japanese, "We won't hurt you." The civilians didn't believe them. Then the loudspeaker turned on. Not a soldier's voice, not a Japanese prisoner trying to convince them. A different voice, clear, calm, speaking perfect Japanese. "My name is General Douglas MacArthur, Supreme Commander of the Allied Forces. I am speaking directly to the people of Japan. You have been lied to." The woman at the cliff's edge stopped. Her daughter looked up at her. The voice continued. "Your emperor has surrendered. The war is over. You are not our enemies. You are under our protection now. No harm will come to you. I give you my word as a soldier." The woman turned around. She looked at the American soldiers. They stood still, hands visible, weapons lowered. She took one step back from the edge, then another. Then she started crying. Within 3 weeks, MacArthur's message had been broadcast across every captured island. Loudspeakers, radio, leaflets dropped from planes. The cliff suicides stopped. Estimates say his words saved between 10,000 and 100,000 lives, but it almost didn't happen. Because when MacArthur first proposed the idea, his own generals told him it was a waste of time. This is the story of what MacArthur said when his own command tried to stop him from saving thousands of enemy civilians. Before we continue, make sure you subscribe. We tell the World War II stories that show the hardest decisions and the moments that defined what kind of victors we would become. To understand why Japanese civilians were throwing themselves off cliffs, you need to understand what they'd been told for 4 years. Japanese propaganda had been relentless. The Americans are demons. They are barbarians. They will torture you, rape your women, kill your children, eat their bodies. Death is better than capture. For most Japanese soldiers, this propaganda didn't matter. They fought because they were soldiers. But for civilians, especially on the outer islands, this was all they knew about Americans. When American forces began capturing islands in the Pacific, something horrifying started happening. Saipan, June 1944. As American Marines pushed inland, Japanese civilians fled to the northern cliffs. Thousands of them. Families. Elderly. Children. They stood at the edge and jumped. Some holding hands. Some pushed their children first, then followed. Some just walked off like they were stepping into the next room. American soldiers tried to stop them. They waved white flags. They shouted in Japanese. They physically ran toward the cliffs to grab people. It didn't matter. The civilians were more afraid of Americans than they were of death. By the time Saipan was secured, estimates put civilian suicides at over 1,000 people. An entire cliff face was later named Suicide Cliff. Another area, where mothers threw babies into the ocean before jumping themselves, became known as Banzai Cliff. The American soldiers were traumatized. They'd come to fight an enemy army. Instead, they'd watched families choose death over rescue. One Marine, Corporal James Anderson from California, 24 years old, later wrote home, "We didn't come here to watch children die. We came to free them, but they thought we were monsters." How do you fight propaganda like that? The same thing happened on Okinawa, April to June 1945. As the battle raged, civilians fled to caves and cliffs. Thousands more suicides. Some were forced by Japanese soldiers, who told them Americans would do worse. Others genuinely believed the propaganda. By the time Japan surrendered in August 1945, estimates put total civilian suicides across the Pacific Islands between 15,000 and 25,000 people, and the war was over. Japan had surrendered, but the suicides hadn't stopped. August 16, 1945, one day after Japan's surrender, a small island near Okinawa. Lieutenant William Chen, U.S. Army, was part of an occupation force securing outer islands. Chinese American, spoke Japanese fluently, 28 years old. His unit landed expecting to process surrendering soldiers and help civilians transition to occupation. Instead, they found more people preparing to jump off cliffs. Chen approached a group of about 30 civilians huddled near a cliff edge. He had no weapon visible. He spoke in Japanese. "The war is over. Your emperor has surrendered. You are safe. We are not here to hurt you." An elderly man stepped forward. He was holding a small child, maybe his grandson. "The emperor would never surrender. You are lying. We know what you do to prisoners." Chen tried again. "I'm not lying. The emperor himself announced the surrender on the radio 2 days ago. Propaganda. American lies." The old man turned and started walking toward the edge. The child was crying, reaching back toward a woman in the group, probably his mother. She was crying too, but she didn't move. Chen's sergeant, a man named Roberts, drew his pistol. "Sir, we can't let them." "Put it away," Chen said. "That'll make it worse." Roberts hesitated, then holstered the weapon. "Poor," Chen shouted after the old man. "Please, just wait. Listen to me." The old man didn't stop. He reached the edge. He looked down at the rocks 200 feet below. He closed his eyes. Chen started running. He got within 10 feet before the old man stepped off. Chen dove forward, grabbed at air, hit the ground at the cliff's edge. Below, the old man and the child fell. 3 seconds. Then impact. Chen lay there, staring down. His hands were shaking. Behind him, the other civilians started moving toward the cliff. Roberts grabbed Chen, pulled him back. "Sir, we need to fall back. We can't stop them all." Chen stood up. He was 28 years old. He'd fought across the Pacific for 3 years. He'd seen men die in combat. But this was different. This was families choosing death because they thought he was a monster. "We have to do something," Chen said. "What?" "They don't believe us. They think we're lying." Chen looked at the group. More were moving toward the edge now. Slowly, deliberately. "Someone they trust," Chen said. "We need someone they trust to tell them." "Who?" "Every Japanese soldier here thinks surrender is shameful. They're not going to help." Chen thought for a moment. "Not a soldier. The emperor. If they hear it from him, they'll believe it." Robert stared at him. "The emperor? How the hell do we get the emperor to talk to some civilians on a random island?" "We don't. But we get his message to them. The surrender broadcast. It was recorded. If we can play it, they'll hear his voice. They'll know it's real." Robert shook his head. "We don't have that recording. We don't have equipment to play it even if we did." Chen grabbed his radio. "But headquarters does." The message went up the chain. Division, Corps, Army. Within 6 hours it reached MacArthur's headquarters in Manila. MacArthur's Chief of Staff, Major General Richard Sutherland, read the report. Then he filed it. Not important. The war was over. Occupation was the priority. If some civilians wanted to kill themselves, that was their choice. Tragic, but not a military concern. The report sat on a desk for 2 days. Then another message came in. Different island. Same problem. Then another. And another. Within a week, reports from 17 different islands described the same thing. Japanese civilians, despite the surrender, were still committing suicide rather than face American occupation. Sullivan finally brought it to MacArthur. August 20th, MacArthur's office. Manila. "Sir, we have a situation with civilians on the outer islands." MacArthur looked up from a report on occupation logistics. "What kind of situation?" "Suicides. Still happening. Even after the surrender." "How many?" Sutherland hesitated. "Estimates vary. Maybe a few hundred in the last week. Could be more." MacArthur set down the report. "Why?" "Propaganda. They think we're going to torture them. Some Japanese soldiers are telling them Americans are demons. Others genuinely believe it themselves. What are our forces doing? Trying to stop them. Not working. The civilians don't trust us. They think we're lying about the surrender." MacArthur stood up, walked to the window. He was quiet for a long moment. "What do you recommend?" he asked. Sutherland cleared his throat. "Sir, honestly, I'm not sure there's much we can do. If they don't trust us, we can't force them to believe us. Eventually, they'll realize we're not hurting people, and the suicides will stop. Eventually. How long is eventually?" Weeks? Maybe months. And how many more will die in that time? Sutherland didn't answer. MacArthur turned from the window. Get me a radio address prepared. I'm going to speak directly to the Japanese people. Sutherland blinked. Sir, with respect, I don't think that will work. They don't trust Americans. You speaking in English, translated to Japanese, it won't make a difference. I won't speak in English. Sir, I'll have it written in Japanese, read by a Japanese translator, someone they might trust. General, even if we do that, they'll just think it's propaganda. Why would they believe us now? MacArthur walked back to his desk. Because I'm going to tell them something no propaganda would ever say, which is the truth, that their emperor surrendered, that the war is over, that they are not our enemies anymore. Sutherland shifted uncomfortably. Sir, we've already tried that. Our soldiers have been saying that for weeks. Then I'll say it differently. I'll tell them they were lied to. I'll tell them we understand their fear. I'll tell them we're not monsters, and I'll give them my word. Your word, as a soldier, that no harm will come to them, that they are under our protection. Sutherland was quiet for a moment. General, I respectfully think this is a waste of time and resources. We have occupation priorities, thousands of logistical issues. Using broadcast equipment and translation staff for a message that probably won't work seems like a misallocation. MacArthur looked at him. How many civilians have we occupied so far? Across all the islands? Maybe 500,000. And how many more will we occupy when we land in Japan itself? Tens of millions. And if even 1% of them believe the propaganda and kill themselves rather than face us, how many dead? Sutherland did the math in his head. His face went pale. Hundreds of thousands. Exactly. So this isn't a waste of time. This is the most important message we'll send. Because if we don't stop this now, when we land in Japan, we won't be occupiers. We'll be walking through a graveyard. Sutherland nodded slowly. I'll get the message prepared, sir. And I want it broadcast everywhere. Every island we control. Loudspeakers, radio, leaflets. I want every Japanese civilian to hear it. Yes, sir. MacArthur sat back down. One more thing. Sir, I want reports. Every day. How many suicides before the message? How many after? I want to know if this works. Understood, sir. The message was prepared in 24 hours. Written in Japanese. Carefully worded to avoid sounding like propaganda. Read by a Japanese-American translator with a neutral accent. It was broadcast starting August 21st. Lieutenant Chen, still on his island, heard it through the loudspeakers his unit had set up. My name is General Douglas MacArthur, Supreme Commander of the Allied Forces. I am speaking directly to the people of Japan. You have been lied to. Your military told you that Americans are demons, that we will torture and kill you. This is not true. Your emperor has surrendered. The war is over. You are not our enemies. You are under our protection now. No harm will come to you. I give you my word as a soldier. We are here to rebuild, not destroy. We are here to help, not harm. Trust is earned, not demanded. I ask only that you give us a chance to prove that we are not what you were told. The war is over. The killing is over. You are safe. Chen watched the group of civilians who'd been preparing to jump. They stopped, listened. One of them, a woman, started crying. Not in fear, in relief. Another, a younger man, turned to Chen. In broken English, he said, "Emperor really surrender?" Chen nodded. Yes, really. The man translated for the others. There was silence, then murmuring. Then some of them sat down, right there on the ground. Exhausted, relieved. Not all of them believed it. A few still walked to the cliff, but most didn't. Over the next 3 weeks, similar scenes played out across every occupied island. The suicides didn't stop completely. Some people were too far gone, too convinced, too traumatized. But the numbers dropped dramatically. Before the broadcast, 50 to 100 suicides reported per day across all islands. After the broadcast, 5 to 10 per day. Within a month, nearly zero. MacArthur's staff estimated that the message saved between 10,000 and 100,000 lives. The exact number is impossible to know. But what's certain is that when American forces landed in Japan itself for occupation, the mass suicides didn't happen. Japanese civilians, having heard MacArthur's message, didn't jump off buildings or take poison. They waited, watched, and when American soldiers arrived handing out food and medicine instead of bullets, they started to believe. Years later, a historian asked one of MacArthur's aides why the general had insisted on the broadcast when his own staff thought it was pointless. The aide said, "MacArthur understood something most military men don't. Winning a war isn't just about defeating an army. It's about what happens after. If the Japanese people had chosen mass suicide over occupation, we would have won the war but lost the peace. Japan would have been a graveyard. Rebuilding would have been impossible. He wasn't trying to save enemy civilians. He was trying to save the future." MacArthur himself never spoke much about the broadcast. In his memoirs, he mentioned it briefly, one paragraph. He wrote, "The greatest victory is not in conquest, but in what you do with that conquest. We could have occupied Japan by force. Instead, we chose to earn their trust. It started with a single message. It ended with a partnership that rebuilt a nation." Lieutenant Chen, the officer who'd first requested help on that small island, stayed in Japan during the occupation. He worked as a translator and liaison between American forces and Japanese civilians. He watched as schools reopened, as hospitals were rebuilt, as former enemies became partners. Before he left Japan in 1948, a Japanese man approached him. Elderly. Chen didn't recognize him at first. Then the man bowed and said, in halting English, "You saved my grandson 3 years ago. Cliff, you tried to stop us." Chen remembered. The old man who'd jumped, who'd taken the child. Chen's face fell. "I'm sorry. I couldn't." The old man shook his head. "Different grandson. I had two. The one who fell, I thought I was saving him. But the other one, he was in the group behind me. When I jumped, his mother didn't." She heard the American voice, the general's voice. She believed. She stayed. "My grandson is alive because you tried to help, because the general told the truth." The old man reached into his pocket, pulled out a small photograph. A young boy, maybe 6 years old, smiling. He starts school next month. American school and Japanese school, learning both, building future. Chen took the photograph. His hands shook. "Thank you," the old man said. Then he bowed again and walked away. Chen kept that photograph for the rest of his life. He said it reminded him that sometimes the most important battles aren't fought with guns. They're fought with words, with truth, with the choice to see enemies as human beings who've been lied to, rather than monsters who deserve to die. MacArthur's message didn't end the war. The Emperor's surrender did that. But MacArthur's message ended something worse. It ended the belief that peace between former enemies was impossible. If you were in MacArthur's position, would you have taken the time to broadcast that message? Or would you have focused on military priorities and let the civilians make their own choices? Let us know in the comments. And if you want more stories about World War II and the decisions that defined what kind of victors we became, make sure to subscribe.